It's been too darn long, my friends, but the Buckley boys are back for another edition of Beyond the Headset. I am Nathan Buckley, joined as always by my twin brother Brandt. Good afternoon, Brandt. It's good to be back, ain't it?
It sure is, Nate. Good afternoon to you as well.
So, Brandt, we start today's show as we always do with Penny for Your Thoughts, the only thing in today's economy that is worth a single cent. Brandt, let's start with you. What's on your mind today?
Well, I tell you what, Nate, there's never really much on my mind. There's not much on my mind right now, but one thing that is on my mind is the Detroit Red Wings. Brand new season this past week. Just opened it up. We just went to the game last Saturday, got the win. Actually, they're uh, one of only two wins to this point. So a little bit of a rough start to the season, but hopefully they can get that going and let's go Wings.
Yes, sir. I mean, when you play one of the best teams in hockey that at least what I'm thinking is going to be one of the best teams in hockey two times to start the season. It's going to be a little rough, but the Wings, they've been holding their own, but we're hoping for the best for the Wings and what could be a playoff season after coming oh so close last season. Be nice to see them make a playoffs this year. And now, Brand, I'll tell you what's on my mind. It's an even number year, which means my 22 car is back in the championship four. He has officially set the record for most championship four appearances by any current driver and is ready to contend for another championship a few weeks from now in Phoenix. Three things are guaranteed in life, Brant: death, taxes, and a Joey Logano championship run in even number years. Well, Brant, for our first topic today, you wanted to talk about something near and dear to your heart. What's going on, man? What's weighing on your heart right now?
I tell you what, Nate, it's something I love. It's something that a lot of people love, but it's starting to become a growing trend and a little bit of a not an annoying one, but an overused one. It's field rushing in college football. Don't get me wrong, man. I am always for a good field rush in college football. But I feel like nowadays you're not only seeing one every week, you're seeing two or three, possibly even four every week. I don't know if it's ever gotten that high, but they're becoming more of a trend, and to me, they're losing their specialness. I'm all for a good field storm. I know there are a lot of people out there who love a good field storm, but if anyone and everyone's doing it, then it all of a sudden becomes not so special. So a couple points I kind of want to touch on, Nate. First, my question to you: what's your thoughts on it? Has it gone too far?
Well, Brand, I'm all with you. I love a good field storming. I feel like it's one of the most exciting things about college football. A small program that has no business winning a game beats a top 10 team. The fans are on the field. They tear down a goalpost. They take it to the river. It's so much exciting, but it's starting to lose its value quite a bit because it's everybody's doing it now. Everybody's starting to do it for any win with any value. If even if they were favored by 3 points, they're storming the field. And the fines, the crowd doesn't care about the fines that are going to the school. So there's got to be a harsher punishment. I'm just not sure what that is.
To piggyback off of that, I did a little bit of research. I wasn't able to find much. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of research on there about drunk fans rushing onto the field after a college football game. But one thing that I did find somehow was that in 2018 there were 10 field storms. In 2019 there were 14. And though I haven't been able to find any numbers past that, it was a 2021 article I think I was looking at after Wisconsin was upset by Illinois and the Illinois fans rushed the field. Um, that gave me some statistics there. Um, but all of them that I were able to find were unranked opponents over top 10 opponents. So there's a list of them this year that I wrote down that to me are stupid. You have no business running on the field. As recently as this weekend, two of them: Tennessee over Alabama and Illinois over Michigan. I get the Tennessee, you beat Alabama. Really, the trend of the field storming really started to catch popularity after Tennessee beat Alabama the first time, tore down the goalpost, threw it in the Tennessee River. that's really when it grew its popularity. But the second time he did it, tore down the goalpost again, didn't get it out of the stadium. Great job by Tennessee security on that one. Um, it's kind of one of those things. Okay, it wasn't as much of an upset as it was last time. It wasn't really much of an upset back in 2022, but you know, you kind of expected that Tennessee had a good chance to win this game, whereas in 2022, everyone just figured that Alabama was going to be Alabama and Tennessee was going to lose that game. The second one, and I'm a little bit biased on this, you are too, Nate, Illinois over Michigan. I know it's a ranked win, but they were ranked higher, 22 versus 24. Um, they won by 14, but if you know Michigan at all this year, something we'll get to a little bit later, it's really not that impressive of a win. Now Michigan's unranked. They have 4 wins, and 3 of them have come to non-power 5 opponents. Um, Michigan's just not really all that impressive. So I was a bit shocked to see Illinois rush the field. Same thing with Washington a few weeks ago. I can give a little bit of credit to that because Michigan at the time was a top 10 team. It's a rematch of the national championship game. They lost that game back in January, and that meant a lot to them. So coming in and getting this revenge on Michigan, I can kind of excuse that, but at the same time, you're rushing the field against a really bad Michigan team. Other ones, Oregon over Ohio State. Oregon was ranked just as good as Ohio State. Oregon was favored in the game. Same thing with Washington and Michigan, or Washington versus Michigan. Washington was favored in that game. In my opinion, if you're favored to win a game, you have no business being on a field. If you're playing a top 5 team and you're also a top 5 team, instance of Tennessee and Alabama, maybe both, even both top 10, we'll just group it into that. You have no business running on the field after the game. There were a couple acceptable ones though this year as well. Vanderbilt over Alabama. Vandy, no one gave you a chance in that game. You were multi-digit underdogs. Alabama was going to beat the brakes off of you. Everyone was saying, especially coming off the win to Georgia, and you won the game. Okay, good for you. That you have earned that right to rush the field. Go wild. Throw the goalposts in the river. They did. Great time. That's the kind of field stormings I like. Arkansas over Tennessee last weekend. Same kind of situation. Maybe they weren't quite the underdogs that Vanderbilt was to Alabama, but they were big underdogs. Tennessee was the 4th ranked team in the nation. They won the game. They rushed the field, had a great time. One of the teams I respect, Alabama. They beat Georgia, and not one fan ran on the field. I respect the crap out of that, but I guess I'll hand this to you for a second, Nate. What do you think is an acceptable field rush?
Well, Brian, I think there are requirements for it. And there are requirements, and then there are excuses, I guess. First and foremost, in order to really rush the field under any circumstance, it has to be a game that you did not expect to win. That's just the basic. Like if you're not playing a rivalry, if you're, if it was you win by a couple scores, it's got to be an upset, shock the world. If you were ranked better or favored to win the game, stay off the field. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned some rivalries too. That's where I think some exceptions come in. A little bit of exceptions. I would not expect Ohio State to rush the field if they beat Michigan this year, even with the current losing streak that they were on. But if Michigan was a top 5 team, I'd say, okay, maybe you haven't beaten Michigan since 2019. I'd say it would be excusable. You think about the kick 6 from Auburn years back. That was a big upset as well. That would have been totally acceptable, in my opinion, if they rushed the field when MSU beat U of M a few years back on the trouble at the snap. If that was in East Lansing, I would have said rush the field. But again, in both those situations I just mentioned, it was a major upset win. But if there's a miracle play involved, I do believe that you have at least a little bit of right to at least think about storming the field.
Okay, that's a good point. That's something that not a lot of people, myself included, think about. I guess really the big question is how does it get stopped? I mean, we were having discussions on this earlier this week. What does the NCAA have to do to prevent this from happening? Um, we've discussed multiple things in the past couple weeks about it because it's been a hot button topic between the two of us. Um, right now it's just a major fine that the students don't care about. The schools care about it, but the students don't. They don't have to pay the fine. So it comes down to either you've got to have a really harsh punishment, like to go as far as to say, if fans run on the field after the game, this school is not allowed to have fans in their stands for their next home game. Just a hypothetical. It's either that would definitely take care of the problem. That's really extreme, but that would definitely take care of the problem. Or like you were saying the other day, Nate, you just have to let loose. You have to let loose of the reins and just say, okay, after every game, it doesn't matter win, lose, blowout, close game, fans are allowed to be on the field, but do it in an orderly fashion. Come down the stairwells. Don't just jump over the wall and start running out on the field. Because I give them credit. It is a big safety issue. When you have fans running all over the place, you have players trying to get off the field, you have, especially in rivalries, you have a lot of tension there. The players for the opposing team aren't happy that they lost this game. Odds are if there's a field rush happening, either it's a major upset or it was a big game. So the opposing players are not going to be happy that um, that they lost that game. There's going to be a little bit of physical altercation if somebody bumps into somebody or something happens. So it does need to be controlled somewhat, but that to me is how it's going to be stopped. It's either going to be it's either gonna they're going to have to get a tight grip on it, or they're going to have to loosen their grip on it. So I guess in the end, at the end of the day, my message to college football is if you didn't have a chance to win the game and you won the game, take the field. But if it's just because you want to party hard and go crazy, stay off the field.
Lions are 5-1 for the second straight season and only the third time since 1991, and now sit atop of the mighty NFC North, who have been the best division by record this season at 19-6. Brandt, what can you say, man? Who let them Lions get hot? So I got one question for you. Other than that, who or what has caught your eye in a good way so far this season for the mighty Detroit Lions?
I tell you what, Nate, there must be a fire that is burning with the intensity of 1,000 suns in Detroit. Because Tigers get hot, Lions get hot. Massive win yesterday over Minnesota. One that at first we didn't really think we were gonna do well with the way that the offense started, but um, something that's caught my eye. I mean, how can you not love the play from Jared Goff? I mean, he has been phenomenal these past few weeks. Had the zero incompletion game with a receiving touchdown against Seattle. Dallas, he had an outstanding game. Yesterday had another outstanding game. It's just a well-balanced offense because you would think with a quarterback like that who's doing as well as that, um, that the run game wouldn't be doing well. But look at Sonic and Knuckles, Montgomery and Gibbs. It's as good as the passing game. So that's one thing that's really caught my eye is just the offense has been phenomenal and it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Brent, I have to agree with you. When Jared Goff first came to Detroit with the Matthew Stafford trade, I was not a fan. I wasn't a big fan of Jared Goff. I wasn't impressed with Lady Day out in California, but he bought into what the Lions have been, who they are, Dan Campbell's process, and has really just been great. And nowadays, you can catch me just with everybody else chanting Jared Goff, Jared Goff. And I was going right up the same avenue with you with what impressed me, and I want to share a few stats. This season, Goff is 128 completions on 174 attempts with 1,610 yards and 10 touchdowns. The first 3 weeks, Goff was 70 for 106 with 723 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Not bad, not great, but not bad. The last 3 weeks, dating back to the Seattle game, the Cowboys game, and then just on Sunday there against the Vikings, he has been 58 of 68, 887 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He had 2+ touchdowns in the last 4 games alone. So, Brandt, I'm telling you, Jared Goff, he's been on one for sure. And he's a lot of the reason that's gotten the Lions offense going. Um, and now, Brand, I want to take a look at the remaining schedule. What games are you most excited for when you look at the upcoming schedule for Detroit?
What I'm really excited for is to play the NFC North. And that sounds like a scary situation because so far the NFC North has been the best division in football, and that is undoubtedly. So just here in a couple weeks, November 3rd, going to Ford Field West out at Lambeau Field, playing the Packers. That'll be a big one just to see how the Packers stack up to the Lions, how the Lions stack up to the Packers. I'm excited for all the rest of the divisional games going all the way down to Minnesota, game 18. Hopefully the division doesn't come down to that. Hopefully the Lions have it decided before then. I better not eat my words by us being out of it by that point, but that would be a very electric game if that's what decided the division week 18. Two specifically that I'm really excited for, back-to-back Thursday games. Thanksgiving Day against Chicago at home, and then the following week, Thursday night football against Green Bay. The two division games, those are going to be crucial in the long run of winning the division. And both Thursday games, both all eyes of America are going to be on those games, and they're going to be big games. So I'm really looking forward to those games.
I have to agree, Brent. You hit it pretty well on there. Two games that I specifically look forward to the most. Um, Honorable mention to Jacksonville Week 11 on November 17th. I got a buddy from college who's a big Jacksonville fan, so shout out Mr. Dylan Kearns. But the game that I really look at and schedule, like on the schedule, that really excites me, and it's kind of disappointing because they're not looking to be as good as they were expected to be this year, is that game going into San Francisco, second to last game of the year. That's going to be a revenge game. We all know what happened in the NFC Championship last year, or just earlier this year, in fact, earlier in 2024. Um, Detroit, they showed what they did when they were PO'd at Dallas. And I know Dallas ain't looking to be great this year either, but I can't wait to see what them boys can do when they go down out south to Cali and face up with San Francisco, a team that is right there on their radar. And finally, Brant, I want to ask you on the Lions, what's your regular season record prediction? Knowing what we know, which teams are good, which teams are bad, what's your final record prediction?
Next week against Tennessee, I could see that being a win. Um, just the non-divisional games. Houston will be a toss-up. I think we could have a good chance of winning that. I think we beat Jacksonville and Indianapolis. I think we can hang around with Buffalo, maybe get a win there. Um, and I think we'll compete with San Francisco. So give me one loss, not in the division, either to probably Houston, Buffalo, or San Francisco. Give me one loss there. So that would put them up to 2 losses. And of the remaining 5 divisional games, give me 2 losses there. So I could see Detroit ending the season at 13-4. That will be probably enough to win the division and will definitely get you into the playoffs.
I'm agreeing with you there actually completely. I got them down for a 13-4 record to end the regular season too. It could come from a hodgepodge of different teams, but honestly, the ones that I wrote down as games that will the Lions will probably end up losing is Green Bay once, to the Bears once, and then to Buffalo. That's probably going to be that'll be a good game, but boy oh boy, Buffalo has looked absolutely phenomenal this year. One final topic there on the Lions, Brant. Um, we're all extremely disappointed to see Aiden Hutchinson go down. key piece to that defense, key piece to the defensive line, a leader, a captain. Now the Lions have to figure out, do they need to replace him on the defensive line? And Brandt, one of the big names out there is Max Crosby. First and foremost, do you think the Lions should go out and make a trade for Max Crosby? And what would that cost? Who else would you have in mind?
Well, I think they definitely should at some point go get Max Crosby. I think the interest is very clear that we want Max Crosby. The fans want Max Crosby. I think the team would enjoy having an extra edge rusher, the quality of Max Crosby. And on the other side, Max Crosby has been very unhappy at the Raiders. The Raiders have shown that they are not dedicated to sticking around with him. So there was a disagreement in practice last week where uh, I guess he created a disturbance during practice and then ended up throwing on a Lions hat. So there's interest to come to Detroit if you're Max Crosby. I think they should, but I think that we as fans need to be patient because I think Brad Holmes has a plan to go get him, but you can't just go and say we want him. Hey, let's make a deal because right now the Raiders know that we need an edge rusher and they're gonna make us have to spend the book on it. Would he be worth the money? Would he be worth the trade picks and stuff? Yes. But I think you could get him for cheaper if we wait a few more weeks, get closer to the trade deadline. What I think it's going to cost, it's definitely going to cost a first rounder, um, second rounder, maybe another first rounder instead of a second rounder, but it's definitely going to cost some high quality draft picks. But at that point, they're building for the future. We are building for now. It's a deal.
Brandt, I agree with you on some lines and I don't agree with you on some lines. As of right now, um, granted, we've only seen one complete game without Aiden Hutchinson. I don't exactly know if they need to exactly go get Max Crosby right now. I mean, I'll agree at some point. I think they're going to really need some depth there on the edge of the defensive line. But right now they really got to see how bad they need him. The defense did okay yesterday. Aaron Jones did not have a phenomenal day. He had an okay day. And how much the defensive line obviously played a lot into it. How much a guy like Max Crosby could come in and make a difference would obviously be quite a bit. But if you need a new car, why go out and get one with four-wheel drive? Why pay extra for four-wheel drive if you live in Georgia? Is kind of what I'm getting at here in terms of, yes, it would be nice to have Max Crosby. There's mutual interest. But if you got to trade away two first-round draft picks, why do it if you don't have to? If you don't need a guy like Max Crosby, if you can go get someone for cheaper that maybe won't be as good, but will still provide phenomenal depth there at the position, you know, Brad Holmes has built this team based off of draft picks. And he's not just building for a Super Bowl now. He wants to be like the Chiefs. He wants to be a year after year Super Bowl contender, not just a one or two and done like what we saw of the Rams. I don't think Brad Holmes wants to go all in. I think he just wants to keep building and building, and he knows that under his process, and the way that Dan Campbell has this team feeling and has this team playing, they're going to get there someday, and it's going to be worth the wait if they just don't rush it, if they don't go all in, and then maybe then instead of one or two Super Bowls, we could be seeing 3, 4, 5 Super Bowls.
So if you're familiar with the show, you know that our next topic is a regular segment on Beyond the Headset, highlights, lowlights. It's one that's been very popular. Um, Basically, what we do, each one of us give a highlight and give a lowlight, a good moment, a bad moment from this past week in sports. Nate, let's start with you. What's your highlight from the past week?
Brant, my highlight has to be Army and Navy both being undefeated. It's so freaking good to see the two service academies that train the men and women who defend this country. It's so good to see them successful in the hard-hitting game of football. Army is currently ranked 23rd, Navy 24th. Navy has 12th ranked Notre Dame this weekend. Once again, shout out Dylan Kearns. Sorry, Dylan, but I'm pulling hardcore for Navy against your Fighting Irish.
If you ask me, I think that game might have been good enough for game day. Navy being undefeated, Notre Dame being as highly ranked as they are. I mean, I know they're going to be at Army Navy later in the year. Maybe it has something to do with not having clearance from the Naval Academy, but man, that would have been electric game day at Army or at Navy versus Notre Dame this week. My highlight this week is Ricky Purcell. If you don't know the story of Ricky Purcell, he is a wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, rookie this year. Trigger warning for those who might not like hearing some of this. Back on August 31st, he was shot in the chest. The bullet actually went out of his back. So it was a very traumatic injury. He didn't know if he was going to survive. That was one of his questions to the paramedics is, am I going to live? And now just a few short months later, not even 2 months later, he comes back, plays in a game for San Francisco, and records 3 catches for 21 yards. That is an inspirational comeback story. That's my highlight for the week. Nate, let's turn into the lowlights. What do you got?
Well, Brant, my low light for the week comes out of the Central Florida and Iowa State game. It was UCF defensive back Braden Marshall who picked off Iowa State early in the fourth quarter, taking it 71 yards to the house for what he thought was a pick six. The only problem was he only made it 70 and a half yards before dropping the ball. Iowa State jumped on it and the pick six was overturned. UCF lost by 3, and this is just a huge pet peeve of mine. Are you serious? Why is this even a thing? It's been a thing in the previous years. It's been a thing where guys dropped the goal line. Oregon had a close call with it earlier this year. Hold on to the freaking ball and hold off on your celebration until you are 3 or 4 steps in the end zone. You don't look cool if you flip the ball at the goal line compared to if you flip the ball, 3 or 4 yards into the end zone. I just don't understand why in the world would you go through all the work, you have this big play, and then decide, you're right there at the goal line. As soon, the second I get into the end zone, I'm going to flip the ball. Hold on to the ball.
I agree, Nate. Anytime that something like that happens, that is certainly a low light. It is a stupid decision and very costly one at that. My low light for the week is one of the biggest games of the week, one of the biggest games of the year. Texas hosting Georgia. There's a interception returned all the way down inside the red zone for Texas. There's a penalty flag. It's pass interference against Texas. It was a very questionable call. It's not to me the questionable call that's the low light. It's the fact that Texas fans, Texas students then started to throw water bottles and trash onto the field at the Georgia bench. That is just not a good look. Look, it's one thing going back to the field storming thing. It's one thing to put players in danger by something like a field storm where you're not meaning to run into anybody. It's just there's a lot of chaos. But when you are directly putting players into danger by throwing things at them, throwing things on the field, not only the players, but the referees, the staff, there's a lot of people on the sidelines of these football games, especially ones as big as this one. So to have something like that is just not a good look for Texas. They got fined, I believe, $250,000 for it from the SEC for that incident. And to me, what might even be a bigger low light is the fact that the call got overturned. After discussion, they decided that it wasn't pass interference. So now you just set a precedent, even though I'm sure the overturned call had nothing to do with the fans throwing trash on the field. You just set a precedent to the entire nation with all eyes of the nation on this game that, if you throw a fit, you could get a call overturned. Might not always happen, but, well, drunk college students, it might be worth a shot. So you just set that precedence that there's a chance that could happen. At least that's the way that the nation might perceive it. To me, that's just not a good situation at all for anyone involved. Not for the fans, not for the students, not for the referees.
This Saturday night, it'll be the 117th meeting between in-state rivals Michigan and Michigan State, the battle for Paul Bunyan. Michigan leads the all-time series 73, 38, and 5, and have won 4 of the last 6 meetings and the last 2. Brandt, Michigan, and MSU have both looked completely different teams from last season. MSU, at least a little bit better. Michigan, much, much worse. You and I have talked so much about the struggles of our Wolverines. What's handicapping this team so much this year in your eyes, Brandt?
Well, the biggest thing that's handicapping them is quarterback play. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. I mean, you go from having a very pro level team, pro level offense, to having only one returning starter on offense. Maybe if you consider Donovan Edwards a starter last year, you got 2, but there's going to be a lot of growing pains with that. But the biggest thing has been the quarterback play. They've now switched through 3 different quarterbacks and have not found a solid answer. Started out with Davis Warren. Everybody thought when they announced that Warren was going to be the starter that, okay, he can throw the ball better than Orgy. Well, that's true, but he can't seem to find the right color. Whether he'd be colorblind or whatever the deal is, he has an interception problem. So all the Michigan fans, ourselves included, started to call for Orgy. It's got to be better than Warren. We got to see what this guy can do. Give him a chance. Let's see him throw the ball down the field. It's got to be better. Well, Orgy could never throw the ball down the field. Finally got the chance. Didn't see much. Let's just say that. It's not hard for a defense to figure out how to stop Michigan's offense when you have a guy who can't throw the ball more than 5 yards and all he can do is run. You just stack the box. You maybe have a couple cornerbacks out. It's not too hard to stop Michigan's offense there. So finally, versus Washington, they turned to Tuttle. Immediately, I was on the Tuttle shuttle. Michigan's offense looked a lot different, went down the field, took the lead on Washington. I thought, okay, cruise through this game, get this win, and then we have a bye week to try to figure things out before Illinois. Obviously, things didn't go well with the end of the Washington game. Thought maybe it was just a mistake, and then this weekend we found out that it was no mistake. Tuttle had a problem with throwing interceptions. He put the ball on the ground again. It's something that we were hearing out of camp was that despite being an injury issue as well, that it was also an interception, a turnover issue, and we're finally starting to see that be the truth. So that's my biggest thing, quarterback issue. Where Jaden Davis is where a lot of people are asking, and the truth is that his family has requested that with him redshirting, he doesn't play at all. Why that might be, I don't know. I've heard academics. They want him to focus on academics. I completely understand because at the same time, while you're a college football player, you're also you're also a student. They want him to get that degree. So I understand, but man, what Michigan could do for a quarterback like Jaden Davis right now.
Absolutely, Brand. I 100% agree with you that it's definitely their biggest issue is the quarterback issue for U of M. I'm going to put this into perspective for a lot of Michigan State fans. I mean, look, this U of M team this year, they paid a heavy price for winning that championship last year. They truly look like a team that lost 10 of 11 starters, including their quarterback, superstar running back, 2 main receivers, and their entire offensive line. It's just the price that you pay for winning a championship. With that said, I mean, us Michigan fans kind of understood that it was going to be a down year, that they weren't going to be contending for the Big Ten. The expectation wasn't there. With that said, it's been much worse than just a mediocre season for the Wolverines this year that I expected for them. But as much of it sucks, you just kind of got to suck it up for a year. Next year, that's unacceptable. And if you'd have asked me before the Rose Bowl make a deal with the devil that, okay, I'll tell you what, U of M will win this game and win the championship, but next year, Harbaugh's gone, JJ's gone, Corum's gone, O-line's gone. Nobody can throw the ball. The defense is going through some troubles, and you're going to have a bad season. I'd be like, give me the championship. I mean, if you just keep having the cycle of making the playoffs and not winning a championship, as great as that is, as great as it is to go through that, what's it really worth? And I'm going to go ahead and put this into perspective for a lot of state fans here who maybe think that I'm living in the past by saying that. If right now you could make a deal with the devil for basketball to have a absolutely phenomenal season this year, one of the best that we've had in recent college basketball history, UConn level season. But at the end of the season, after you win that championship, you win the Big Ten, win the NCAA championship, Izzo rides off into the sunset. All of your star players go to the draft, more of them transfer. And next year, you got to completely rebuild. And it's your bottom half of the Big Ten, and you're the laughing stock of people are, oh, how did they go from, a national championship to this? Would you take that deal? Because I'll be honest with you, Brandt, I don't think there's a whole lot of sports fans that honestly wouldn't take a deal like that.
Right. I agree with that. One thing I do want to touch on, something that um, you mentioned that nobody, we weren't expecting Big Ten championship, national championship contention. Um, Let me make this one thing clear. There were fans that were thinking that. There were plenty out there. So now that we've kind of gone through the cycle and figured out where this team is, we've had a lot of people come to us and be like, well, what happened to contending for national championship? What happened to contending for Big Ten? What happened to that? And Nate and I have both been like, what are you talking about? Like, we were not expecting to be contending for a national championship. There were Michigan fans out there who were, but we were not. And we have heard from multiple of the people that we talk to the most about this kind of thing. A lot of our good buddies, a lot of people who it's not just a conversation here or there where you could get mistaken what we said versus what somebody else said. The people who have to hear it from us all the time say, yeah, you were expecting mid-pack Big Ten, maybe top four of the Big Ten. You weren't expecting to win the Big Ten. You weren't expecting national championship, maybe make the playoffs. Now, let me just say, like Nate said, they've gotten lower than even our expectation. They've gotten lower than where I thought their basement was. I said coming in, the absolute feeling for this team is 11-1 and making the playoff. Probably won't even win the Big Ten. I said the basement was 8-4. Right now, we'd be thrilled to even make a bowl game at this point. Those people who did say that they were going to win a national championship, they were going to repeat, they were going to beat Ohio State again, win their fourth straight Big Ten, have been severely humbled. That is one of the things that I can say. Even my expectations, I have been humbled by where my expectations were versus what the result has been. It has been a very humbling season so far. And I hope that whoever you have heard say, we're going to win a national championship, we're going to win the Big Ten again, we're going to beat Ohio State, we're going to kick Michigan State to down the gutter. I hope that they've been humbled and can at least admit that, this isn't what we expected it was going to be, and it's quite humbling. So, just want to piggyback off of what you said there, Nate. So,
Now, Brand, I know it's going to kill you to do this, but I'm going to need you to give me one good thing you've liked about MSU this season, and then I'll go ahead and let you give me something that you have that you think that Michigan State needs work on so far.
it's both going to be the same answer, and it's Aiden Childs. Aiden Childs is an outstanding quarterback when he chooses to be. I have been saying for the past 4 weeks, I have been putting money down at least 2 or 3 times on Aiden Childs to have 2 touchdowns. And I've been saying that He's due for a game where he is going to have two, three, maybe four touchdowns and 200 yards and no interceptions. He's due for it. I've been saying it for the past 3 or 4 weeks now. He's yet to do it. He just continues to throw interceptions. Against Iowa, he looked pretty good. He had a couple interceptions, I think two of them, maybe just one, but it was by far his best game. And I'm just gonna say this: I know without almost without an ounce of doubt in my mind that his go off game is going to be against Michigan. It would be too ironic for it not to. Um, I've loved Aiden Childs and I've hated him at the same time because he has been a really good look for Michigan State. He's been exactly what that offense has needed. But at the same time, same kind of situation as Michigan's situation, he can't seem to throw the ball to his own team sometimes. The problem is that they don't have a backup option, so they have to ride it out with him. And don't get me wrong, I would ride it out with him too. But Michigan has so many options that we keep thinking that the next option is going to be better. So that's what I love and hate about Michigan State is the quarterback play from Aiden Childs.
And finally, Brent, with both teams being evaluated, what's your prediction for Saturday in Ann Arbor?
That's a great question. Um, I think it's going to come down to how well can Michigan's defense hold up against State's offense. Um, and can Michigan's offense get anything going against State's defense? State's got a really good defense. Michigan's got a really good defense. It's probably going to be a low scoring game. Um, just because I can't ever predict Michigan to lose. Give me Michigan in a 17-14 game.
You know, Brant, at the beginning of the year, if you had told teams from either side that this was going to be a close game, they probably would have been like, not really. But here we are. And I think it's going to come down to the battle of the offenses on Saturday. Right now, I give it a 50-50 chance. It's going to come down to the efficiency of Michigan's run game versus the efficiency of Michigan State's throwing game, in my opinion. How good can Michigan's offensive line and Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings do against Michigan State's run defense compared to how well Aiden Childs and Michigan State's receivers, how well can they do against Michigan's secondary? As of right now, it's I have a little bit more faith in State's passing game than Michigan's passing game, and obviously I have a little bit more faith in Michigan's running game over State's running game. So that's really what I think it's going to boil down to in the end is Michigan's run game versus State's passing game. Well, folks, that's all for today. We hope you'll join us next time when Brandt and Nate go beyond the headset.